Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Takeoff Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Mills, and I'm fired up to be with you today. I'm happy to have our guest on today is Coach Bill Selby, assistant coach at Northwest Community College. He is one of the top tier coaches in our league, in that junior college league, but also a guy that is known throughout the state, throughout the Southeast, just from his professional career, but also what he does with his players and how he gets the most out of his players. So we're fixing to dive right into this. And first, Coach, how are we doing?
You're doing great. I'm a little cold and my snow boots are a little wet in the kitchen, but other than
Yeah.
that, I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's what one thing I know, like today was supposed to be opening day for us. You guys are, 8, 9, 10 games into the season, and all of a sudden we get a big snow weather coming in. So we're sitting here at a halt and just waiting and ready to get back out there. But just Coach, the first thing I want you to do is just to go in and give us a background just on who you are and your career playing wise, where you went to school, things like that. Just give us a background on who Bill Selby is.
All right. I originally went to Horn Lake High School, so I'm an Eagle. And from there, it was unique about my situation is on my junior year in '87, we had an incredible baseball team, high school team. I think we ended up getting beat out in the north half, but we were incredibly good. And we had all 8 of those. I was the only freshman or junior playing at that time, but all 8 of the seniors on that team had signed to play somewhere, whether it was we had
Wow.
one in Memphis, one going to Ole Miss, and the rest going to junior college. And so it was a really talented team. And so the next year, we were a little bit down, but the opportunities for me to play somewhere else were just not really there. I'd heard from Delta State and I'd heard from Northwest, and but I'm just like any other kid that's playing ball now, and I understand that when I'm recruiting them, that my dreams and aspirations were the big school and the big stadiums and all those things. And so I went and played in the high school all-star game, and ended up after the game, Birmingham Southern came by and talked to their coach for a little bit, and he made a great offer right there, and that's where I was going out of the gates. NAIA school in Birmingham, and great school, tough first academic challenge I had, and I was a pretty good academic student, nothing like my son, but I wasn't dumb, and I was a little overwhelmed with how hard it was, just the responsibility and things like that. There was a coaching change at the end of the year. A bunch of us left. I think 14 or 15 of us left because of the coaching
Wow.
change. And so I ended up calling Coach Miles, and he gave me an opportunity to come back to Northwest. And
Okay.
I see it with a lot of guys now. Just looking fast forward to now as a coach, I see a lot of kids that transfer back, and the pressure that's lifted off them to just, oh my gosh, what do I do? I'm around guys I know, and I'm around guys I enjoy, I grew up playing with, and I can be me. And it opened up a lot of doors. So I talked to several schools, all the schools in the state, and Southern Miss was just one that had stayed on me. Hill Denson would talk to me every once in a while, and just from the fall on, and I ended up going there for 2 years, and 2 of the most fun years I've ever had in college baseball, and ended up going there. And from there, it's funny because I was a Yankees fan growing up, right? And so I you couldn't watch a bunch when I was growing up. You just had limited options. So the Yankees were America's team, and so I grew up watching all the Yankees and year after year. And at the end of my senior year, I was working out with a Cub Scout dang near every day at a different position. And then several other scouts would come by and things. So I never even thought about pro ball in my senior year of college. Never filled out a card, never anything. And so all of a sudden, my senior year, I led the country in homers. And so I had a lot of people coming in. We're going to work you out here, think about drafting you this, blah, blah, blah. So it was kind of a whirlwind all of a sudden my senior year. And I remember the night before the draft, I got a call from the Yankee scout. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. He's like, well, how'd you like to be hitting those home runs over that short right field fence at Yankee Stadium? I thought, this is great. It's the best. And so that next day, the Red Sox drafted me. So I instantly thought, well, I can't like the Yankees anymore. And you can see that in the organization. They don't promote hatred or anything, but there's definitely a rivalry which extends beyond the years of anyone existing right now. It's really neat. But played several years, 2 years with the Red Sox, made it up pretty quick, made it to the big leagues in '96 with them. And at the end of the year, out of the blue, they were like, look, you're going to have to do a lot of what you did this year of going back up and down, people are injured and things like that, or we could sell your contract to a team in Japan and you can go play a year in Japan. I thought, I was young as a rookie. I was like, well, I'll go make the money, but I don't want to come back to the Red Sox if you're selling me now, So
Yeah.
I ended up becoming a free agent when I came back, played a year over Japan, which was a unique experience. Came back over, signed with the Indians, and basically for about 3 years was with in AAA in the big leagues with the Indians. Left a year, went to the Reds, came back to the Indians for another year, and then, excuse me, with the Cubs, Cardinals, and then I finished my last year in Mexico. So
Wow.
a long 14 years of going a lot of different places and seeing a lot of different things. Yeah.
It's crazy where this game will take you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it
So
though. I got to play
yeah.
7 years in Mexico in the winter leagues. I played another
Wow.
year in Dominican in the winter leagues, 1 year in Venezuela in the winter league. So yeah, I've
Wow.
been all over the place playing. Mm-hmm.
So when you look at all the places in Central America and places you just named, and then Japan, and then also just playing here in America, is there any significant difference in the way the game's played in different parts of the world?
Oh, absolutely. In Japan, I use this because a lot of people assume Japanese baseball is just, it's pretty good. You see some guys go there when they're towards the end of their career. The Japanese brand is the most structured and disciplined brand of baseball you'll see.
Yeah.
As a pitching guy yourself, it's a lot easier when you can take any guy and say, hey, look, this 3-2 pitch, I need a fork ball down and away, and somebody can execute it. Just about everybody could execute it. It's a really good fundamental brand of baseball. There's some talented kids. But talking about the differences now and at Eli's school, my son Eli, Magnolia Heights, Coach Polk spoke the other night for the kickoff banquet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't seen Coach Polk since the last time I coached in the Cape, but I've known him since I played, and when he recruited and everything like that, but way back when. But we got to talking about it. Part of his message was the distractions these kids have.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I used this in a sense, well, what was different in this and this and this? And he used the same analogy with going to Dominicans. He's been in a couple of Dominican schools. And I can say Dominican, or I could say Mexico and Venezuela too. But their attention to what they're doing and not being distracted, but what they're doing baseball wise is so much different from what it is here. He made a comment, and I would agree that I could field a team of 14-year-olds in Dominican that could compete in junior college right now easily.
Yeah.
They're just level of dedication and determination at all costs. This is the most important thing. Well, I mean, nothing against our brand of baseball here. I
Yeah.
think our brand of baseball is great, but there are a lot of distractions here. And, you can sit on video games all night, or you can go hang out and run around, do whatever you want to do. So
Yeah.
the brands of baseball, the fun part about it, I see the American big leagues now where people talk about, oh my God, he showed him up on this home run,
Yeah.
and this pitcher's, you screaming and hollering. When I played winter ball, and that's, when the seasons are over, to explain winter ball to people who are listening that don't know, when the seasons are over, and these 4 countries, well, there's others too, but the Caribbean countries, Puerto Rico, Dominican, Venezuela, and Mexico, they'll have their own winter league. It'll start in October, go October, September, November, December, actually start right at the end of October, and go the playoffs to start in January. Then they'll have a Caribbean series, and everybody can leave and go. What's their chance to give their country some
Mm-hmm.
in-person view of their
Publicity.
game
Yeah.
too? Yeah, and so it's really talented. It's really short, but when you go to winter ball and things like that, you understand how passionate these players are and these people are. So I can remember being in Dominican, especially because I was talking to the third baseman Cajoma the other day, who found out I played a year in Dominican. It turns out we know the same people, a lot of the same people. It's really awesome to talk
Oh
to.
wow.
But we were talking about how in the locker room, I mean, by December, by guys, you're having basically a big league team, because all the big leaguers have got their rest and they're playing now. So the rosters are filled with
Yeah.
big league players. And yet they're showing each other up. But what it is, you'd have somebody striking somebody out and they're pulling a chainsaw on the mound, and the guy hits a home run and he's walking and doing all this. there's so much passion and fun. You're seeing it start to trickle over to
Mm-hmm.
the American game. I think, with even more so the dynamic, there's a structure in high school now and a structure in college ball. And you can see them. You've coached at college level. You've coached, successfully in the high school level, and you can see the different structures and what's allowed, what's not allowed, how much fun you let them
Mm-hmm.
have, or how much you kind of mold them into everybody doing on the same page, or can you allow some individuality? So I think you can take a little bit from everywhere you play for sure.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Awesome. And looking back and when you look at your career, obviously a successful career when you can go and play for 14 years, like you said, what made you want to get into coaching and why the JUCO game?
Well, when I played at Northwest, and when I went from Northwest to Southern Miss, Coach Carson's who's head coach at Northwest. He was our roommate at Southern Miss. It was me and him and Hugh Freeze. And so Hugh
Not
tried to
bad
walk on the
there.
baseball team at Southern. He tried to walk on the baseball team there, didn't make it. So he's not going to talk about that. But it turned out pretty good for him, And so,
Yeah.
but we had talked about coaching one day. Maybe that's something I'd like to do. Uh, I honestly, I didn't think about it much. I started playing, and baseball becomes, especially when you're paying bills, it
Yeah.
becomes such your life, and of course you got to stop along the way to enjoy what you're doing and make an impact somewhere as a person of faith, or that's just your life though. It's what you do. You wake up and you're thinking about practice plans with Sal Pinola and lesson plans with your classes you teach. You're waking up to go, how can I get better and be prepared for a game? Well, towards the end of my career, I say towards the end, probably with a couple of years left, I used to go down to Northwest, and practice with them some when they're getting ready for their season, when I'm getting ready to go to spring training. And Coach Castle was still there, and he'd talk about it all the time. Well, I'm trying to hang on here until you get ready to coach and you just take over for us. And so that's the way it happened. I finally got to a point where I was tired of being away from home. Eli was 2,
Mm.
and I got to retire on my own terms. And when I did, I went straight there. And Jake, you got to speak, and it was what you said the other day was very impactful. I got to tell people
Thank you.
in your clinic that, it had a lot of baseball meaning to it, but it's really your journey of how it's changed you as a person, how you realize coaching affects, it's more than just wins and losses and things like that. So when I first got into coaching, it was all about, man, what do I do? I don't know what to, how do I teach hitters? I just got through hitting. I feel like I could go hit a major leaguer right now, blah, 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 until it morphed into, well, one guy's disappointed because his girlfriend broke up with him, and I'm trying to get him motivated for one game. The other guy's so mental that he can't think about his next pitch because he just went 0 for 3 in his
Yeah.
first game. And then 2 guys that were late for practice. There were so many things going on. I just felt like he was just doing this. And then I got addicted to it. It's like, man, this
Mm-hmm.
is awesome that I get to be around these kids, do baseball. And, fortunately I didn't have to teach. I would have if I had it, but I didn't have to teach. I could just do baseball. And, I can look back and, we had a kid commit the other day, and he sent me a personal message about, man, I remember when I used to hit with you at 11, it just meant so much to me. And
Wow.
there was so much that I get out of it now. I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else.
Yeah.
I really couldn't.
Yeah. And it's like I tell people all the time, I get to wake up and play in the dirt and throw baseballs and things like that and get paid for it. So it's
Yep.
awesome.
Yep. It
Yeah.
is awesome.
And when you look back and just what are the things when you look back at your career, what are the things that you learned because you got to play at a level a lot of people won't get to?
Yeah.
What are the things that you learned through that career that you try to bring back and implement with these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids?
Well, in my case, I think what's helped me because I wasn't, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, because I think Blaze is one of the greatest kids
Mm-hmm.
that's walked the face of the earth. But like, I wasn't a Blaze Jordan or an Austin Riley or a Cody Reed that was a big bonus baby that their ceiling was so high that it's going to be inevitable that they do what they do. I was a guy that got an opportunity and had to fight and claw and scratch for every opportunity. And so I use it, a lot with today. I tell people, and people don't believe this, but I try to tell them, I said, look, I tell my son this every day. Eli was never the best player on any team I ever played on, ever. I wasn't in high school. I wasn't in college. I wasn't in any pro ball, but it drove me to to be as to work as hard as I could for as long as I could to see what happened with it, and I was motivated by people telling me I couldn't, because unfortunately the society we live in, and I talked about that, I hope enough to where people understood kind of what I teach as a hitter when I spoke at your clinic not too long ago, was that we put these boundaries up, and that's where the boundaries came from in the way I teach now. Is why can you tell me? I never forget, because the scout, bless his heart, I just come off a season my senior year of hitting 23 home runs at Southern Miss. And I wasn't a big guy, 5'8", 190 pounds. And he said, look, we think you can hit, don't know where you're going to play defensively, and you're not going to hit home runs with a wooden bat. It's a different ball game. And all I could think of is, how do you tell me that? How can you sit there in my living room and say that? And I ended up hitting another 12 that summer. And I used that as my whole career of, we set these limits, whether we're coaches set limits for kids, or our parents, we set them for our own kids, or especially self-preservation, we set these limits. Well, if I can just stay within this, I'm going to be fine. And I think throughout my career of always having to claw and scratch and climb the next fence, and I'm not the top prospector, I'm not this, or I'm another free agent, or I'm blah, 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 blah. That's helped me help kids understand it doesn't matter what people say in that moment. It doesn't matter what people think or what happened that moment. You control what you can control, and don't say no until it's time. You'll know when it's time, So that was the biggest thing of 14 years of going everywhere that I could use coaching wise.
Yeah. And you pretty much, I think you just summed it up for us right here. What do you think the hardest thing for the players that you see daily? Because obviously, if anybody knows anything about Northwest, very, very talented club, and has always been talented. Uh, so when I get there, or when I look at you, you got some of the best players probably in this part of the state, or even in the state of Mississippi, and you guys go into Tennessee and things like that. But what are the hardest things that you have seen in your coaching career? And you can even go into maybe how it's changed a little bit, but hardest thing for players to grasp on a daily basis when it comes to just the game of baseball.
Well, and I'll have this conversation with your player, Dawson, when he gets there with us. And when they get there, and I want kids to understand, especially when they're living dreams of playing college baseball, whether it be with us at Northwest, or with Ole Miss on it, with Bianco at Ole Miss, or wherever that may be, when you get to college, you're a full-time student and a full-time baseball player. You don't get to be half and half. You don't get to be a percentage here and a percentage here. So that means instantly you're expected to be able to manage your time a lot better. And so, what you find, we talked about this earlier just in a conversation, was that the level of play in college, whether it's junior college or wherever, is exponentially better. It's just no way around it. There's not, the ability of every high school player to play college ball is not there. And so that next level is going to be harder, and the next level is harder. And it's just, that sounds cliche, but that's the way it is. And so, part of what I try to use and teach with guys is, there's as much a mental battle with taking care of your classroom stuff, responsibility of doing things on and off the field correctly, competing on the field, competing for a spot, for a job, especially when you got talented players. I think the same thing too. And people, of course, we're fans of Alabama in our house. I'm from Alabama, and so we're Alabama football fans. And it amazes me year after year how Coach Saban can have a roster full of blue chippers, and have them understand that if you compete with each other every year, and you compete every day, and you compete to earn a spot, and don't get disappointed if you don't win it, you just keep competing, you're already developed more than the next school that's here, that's school B. And so with our talented players, it's, and I don't think, we may not be the best. We feel we are. When we go recruit them, we feel we're the best, but they have to understand that even though you may be one of the best, if you don't learn how to work, how to compete, how to take care of this, how to take care of yourself on and off the field, and continue to take those barriers off and see how much better I can come, well, that next wave of kids is coming in. And then that next wave of kids, and this game will go by too fast. So there's a lot of elements that I enjoy about the way the game is. Used to, you could roll guys out there and just be better. And now I think you got to coach with Coach Avalon. I think he's one of the best coaches I've been around. Coach Holloman at East Central. I think he's a great developer. Richie's a great coach. I think there's a Luke. I think Luke is going to be a premier coach in this league too. I think the level of coaching now is I can take my player pool right here. Now, I think any coach will say this, and we're going to do my philosophy, like yours at South Panola. This is what we're going to do with my guys, and we're going to run out there, and you better be at your best game to beat us. I think that's the way our league, and it's changed over the evolution of the last 10 years in the sense that used to you could go out and get the best players. Look, man, our best day, you're not going to beat us. Now that's not the case. Everybody has their best players, and so. And now it's like we talked about a while back. It's that how do I motivate these players to understand there's more to you coming here and getting 6 hits in a day than just I prepared. There's some mental factors that go on. It's like the snow right now. What else can I tell my kids? But everybody else is going through it. So if you learn to power through this and not let this, we had snow and my game's a little bit off. Well, you can make excuses. That's fine. That's your choice. But you can also say, I'm not going to let this beat me. I'll find a way to get a little bit of work done if I have to go out in my backyard and do something. And then when we get back to it, I'm not going to miss a beat, So the mental part is as hard as anything.
Yeah. And as I sit here listening, one of the things you continue to say is just talking about the barriers that these kids have. And you get these guys in and you talk about, hey, if we don't get these barriers down, the next wave's coming. What are some things that you do with your players that allow you to break those barriers down for them?
Well, I think, and I know you've been I know you had a few responsibilities when you were coaching too, so you didn't get as much. But I think the beauty of what we get to do in junior college, I have a lot of one-on-one time. And so let's just say I had a good hitters meeting a couple of weeks ago with my guys because, Eureka, I'm standing here and Renfro asked me a question, tell me what you think about new school versus old school hitting. So I just kind of break down what I teach and what I look for. And I thought, I wonder if my incoming freshmen have heard this yet. Yeah. So that's what we went by. I went back and did. And I had all my other guys, my COVID freshmen and my COVID sophomores already heard this. And so I went down with them, broke it down, and we did all this. And so, I try to get everybody on the same page generically to what I teach. And then I think what I try to do, and I'm not saying everybody does or anybody does, or it's not the right way or the wrong way, but if I'm trying to break down a barrier, I need to know that kid first. I can't just assume that Dawson Griffin's coming in here and I think you can hit 400 in this league. Well, go get him. But there may be something that I need to know about his personality that may keep him from it. Because just in text with him, not to knock him, but text with him, he's a lot like I was. He'd go 1 for 3. Coach, you see something wrong with my swing right here? Yeah. No, I don't see nothing wrong. You went 1 for 3. You hit 3 balls hard. Don't worry about it. What I mean? So there may be more of I've got to keep him built up and not think something's wrong when something isn't wrong. And so for me to break those barriers down, it's like I had our lefty Fowler that we talked about earlier, that I had a conversation with him when he went off this fall to Oklahoma. He said, Coach, man, I feel good. I've kind of cleaned this up in my mechanics, especially on my finish. I'm finishing more balanced, more athletic, blah, blah, blah. I said, how's your velo been? He says, good. I touched 95. I've been pitching at 91, 94. And I said, that sounds good. He said, man, I'm going to try to hit 97 this fall. I mean, I think I can get to 97. I said, why 97? So, well, I think it's something to shoot for. I said, you're 3 miles an hour from 100. You're not just going to shoot for 100. I didn't think of it like that. So, well, let's think of it this way. So if I set my goal for 100, then I just believe and I just keep pushing, and all of a sudden I max out at 98. You've already surpassed the original goal you set for yourself by trying to achieve things that you didn't think were attainable. And so that's how I kind of do it. I think you got to be realistic in that sense. And I can't, this player A is not going to be Mike Trout if they're not Mike Trout. But that doesn't mean player A can't reach the limits of what he can reach. And who knows what those are. It's what I tell people all the time. Who knows what, like Cody Reed, we used Cody Reed when he was a senior in high school at Horn Lake. Now, in the high school all-star game, I know he touched 90, but I never saw him throw a pitch over 86. And that was on the Jugs gun, not the Stalkers. That was a Jugs gun. But you could look in him. I said, oh, this body's broad shoulder. Man, there's a lot. And I never forget, I told his stepdad, I said, Will, I think this kid can pitch in the big leagues. Are you kidding me, coach? I mean, you just seen him 4 times. I said, man, I'm just telling you, his frame works. He's athletic.
Yeah.
He stays in basketball till baseball starts. I mean, just kid, he works, blah, 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 blah. Sure enough, when he got drafted, his dad was like, man, you said it. And so, but if people are going to always tell him, well, you're kind of gangly and you throw the ball all over the place, well, that's what he hears all the time. You know what I mean? And I can't do that because I didn't want people to do that to me. And so I think some of these kids aren't as strong enough, within to say, I don't care what somebody says. I know what I can do. I know the sky's the limit. So I think it's my job. And I like that part of trying to goad them to say, you're better than this. I'm telling you, you're better than this. So that's the way I do it.
That's one of the most frustrating things. And I've told my guys this. I said, hey, it's so frustrating when I see more in you than you see in yourself. And that's the toughest thing that I could say in my, 10 years of doing this that I've had to figure out is, hey, how do you connect with that kid? Just like you said, that one-on-one time of figuring out that kid to get that out of them to where they start. Right. And it's not necessarily like I do it, but it's how can I get that kid to think like I think? Just saying, hey, everybody's always told me you can't do this, you can't do that. And then I go, and you know what, screw this. I'm going to show you what I can do.
Absolutely. Well, you had that as a player. You absolutely had that, and I think this is kind of a challenge for a coach, because there's a lot of kids that really want to play baseball. A lot of kids that love it and want to do it no matter what. You have to love to coach, to have that attitude of as more than they do as a player have their desire to be a player. You have to have that desire more than them to be a coach, to learn that, take that time to learn that about them so you can maximize that player. But if you're just going to show up and go through the motions and look, I'll throw a lineup out there and, we'll do some this and this and this, and we'll go get better as a team. I think it takes coaches like yourself. Like you said, you had that as a player. You had that. I'll show you. You didn't sign me, Northwest. Watch this. I'll shove it. I could see that, and so those guys make the best coaches because they will motivate their players to be better because they had to do the same for themselves. So, but that takes a coach that's dedicated in doing that.
And what I love is, I got probably one of the best hitting guys in the state. And the first thing you talk about is, hey man, I got to get to know this kid. It's not a drill. It's not this, it's not that. It's, hey, I got to get to know him. And that should speak volumes to everyone that listens to this is, hey, it's not about a certain drill of how to do this or how to do that. It's how do we connect with the kid and communicate with the kid? Then we'll get to that. But if I can't get this kid on the same mental link as I am, then we got bigger problems.
They're going to be searching for things that might not be there.
Exactly. Now, and going into and one thing I think I'd be crazy if not to ask you to share this. One of the best things you talked about in your clinic was your Mariano Rivera story. And would you go in and just share that story with our listeners?
You talking about the home run?
Yes.
Is that what you're? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, and I'll tell this to my listeners, but I don't really talk about it much. But I'd been sent down a week earlier, and we had played. I was with the big club at the time, and there was somebody coming off this DL, and somebody was going to be the odd man out. You kind of had a feeling it was going to be me, and the papers kind of hinted it might be me. So we went through back to Buffalo, our AAA place. And we had a exhibition game, which is odd, right in the middle of the season. And I played with Cleveland on that exhibition game and played that night. And after the game, we're in the dugout. We played it at Buffalo. And so I remember after the game, we're up there. Everybody's getting showered and stuff. And our bench coach said, "Hey, Skip wants to talk to you." And I knew what it was about. I mean, it wasn't no secret. I'd been up and down my whole career. Basically, it was my whole career was like that. So I didn't want to draw attention to anything. I just kind of quietly did it, and went in there and he said, "Bill, look, we want you here and such coming off the DL. And until we get him traded, we're going to send you back down." And it'd been the second time I'd been sent down that year. And I said, "I get it. I understand." And he said, "Look, I just keep your stuff here. And as soon as something happens, we're going to get you right back up here, blah, blah, blah." So no harm, no foul. Kind of just quietly while everybody's doing their thing, getting ready to get to Cleveland, I kind of crawl back down to the dugout, just kind of walk down the steps and just kind of hung out there till kind of everybody left. And then I could just move my stuff over and go back to my apartment. And Travis Fryman was a good friend of mine. We did chapel together, and we ate lunch together a lot on the road. And he came down there and we talked and prayed. And he said, "Man, just be strong. God's got a plan for your life." And at that time, you've been up down so many times, and 32 years old, and I'm thinking, dang, I'd like my career to take a turn. You get selfish with it, but anyway, long story short, we prayed about it. He left. Well, Milton Bradley came down there. I don't know if you know Milton Bradley or remember Milton Bradley, but he was a really talented major league player that was misunderstood. A lot of people thought he was uncoachable. A lot of people thought he had an attitude problem. Just didn't talk much. He had a lot going on. I liked him. He didn't talk much. He worked hard. He's a young kid, very talented. He came out of the dugout and we had this conversation for good knows 10 minutes. He said, Bill, I've watched you and admired what you've been through and your career and all this. And we probably hadn't said 20 words to each other all year, other than a nice job or something like that. It's just the way it was. And he says, "Man, it hurts me that it's you and not me going down, and you don't deserve this." And man, we just went through a lot. And I'm like, how was this guy who's a superstar who doesn't talk much, who people misunderstand, and he's sitting there saying I'm impacting him on going down. So long story short, we talked a little bit more and we prayed about it. Said, man, you just keep doing you and everything. I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. Well, I went back down. A few days later, Cabrera got traded and I got called back up. And I pinch hit that night. I got called up. That was the day before, off Mariano. And I remember coming up, it was a meaningless situation, but I came up and I remember I thought I stood on a ball to first base. I think it was it Giambi playing? No, it was Nick Johnson playing first. I stood on a ball first, and it was that cutter that cuts about 1.5 feet, and it ended up breaking my bat. 3-hop one to first, and I was out. And I remember after the game talking to Eddie Murray, hitting coach, about it, and he's like, "Well, I said, Eddie, I was all over it. I saw it moving. I just couldn't get inside." And he said, "Okay, well, maybe you ought to choke up." I said, "I don't mind choking up." So the next day, I started, and I'll never forget it because people see the home run. They don't realize what led up to the home run and what goes through a bench player's mind. Mm-hmm. So a bench player, to give you this, a bench player wants to do anything he can to have value on the bench. You know what I mean? If that means that one time I got to hit that week was a pinch hit at bat, it wanted to be competitive or get a big hit or something. Well, that keeps you riding on to the next week. It was tough to be a bench guy. We had another bench guy that was a utility player, was a heck of a defensive player. So he defensive replacement or go play shortstop a game and make some great plays or something like that. So I started with Musina pitched that day, and it was shadows and sunny, and I could see, and his changeup was lights out. And so I think I popped up one ball, struck out twice off of him. It was awful. And I remember coming up in the 8th off Mike Stanton, left-hander, used to pitch for the Yankees, and got 0-2 and got a base hit to right. And so smoke one to right. It was like, yes, I get to first base. And all I could think about from then until the next inning was I salvaged that day. 1 for 4 is not bad for a bench guy. That gets me, especially off a left-hander. So I go play defense that inning and come back to the bottom of the 9th. And that rally starts going. I mean, it was a long rally. I mean, we were down 7-2 or something like that. And so it just went on and on. And we get closer and closer in my at bat. And I remember looking over, and Lee Stevens looks at me. He was another guy, a bench guy that was on the bench. And he looked over at me. He says, "Buddy, we're going to hit again." All I could think of was like, oh, God, I don't want to face it. I just salvaged the day. And sure enough, I went down in the tunnel because you could walk down behind the dugout, and we had a little place where you could hit, watch a video and hit. And I went down there, got loose again just in case. I remember saying a prayer like, "God, look, I had done all I could to get through this week going up and down and salvages. Just if I've got to swing the bat here, just swing it for me. Just do it. I mean, just give me some strength here." And I'll never forget praying that. And I went back up there, and sure enough, it rolled around to that at bat, and Fryman pinch hit for Stevens in front of me, and he struck out, and I came up. And I remember 2-0. I took 2-0 because I want to make sure I didn't get jammed on 2-0 like he does everybody. And got to 2-2 and just laced one down the right field line. I thought that won it right there. And it went foul by about a foot. And I remember going back because in those situations when you're facing the Pedro Martinez's, the Mariano Rivera's, the Randy Johnsons, you're just going, God bless, that was my chance. Why couldn't I go fair? I got no shot now. And I remember I had to regather my thoughts. I still remember that going, hey, no big deal. Get you another pitch to hit right here. And I got it and didn't miss it. And it went out pretty good. And I remember running around second and Jeter kind of looking back at me, kind of giving me a wink. And I got the home plate, and sure enough, there was Milt Bradley just pounding on top. So it was a fun day. My wife was there, my grandmother was there, had kids there, my nephews and nieces were there. So it was a good day. We rode off that for a little bit.
Yeah. What's awesome about that is just sitting there and listening to the backstory and the details. Like you said, the stuff people don't go into, and like you being a bench guy and hey, we're just trying to salvage and find worth for the week, to keep me there. And just like you said, that grind mentality, kind of like we talked earlier, that's the stuff people don't get. They just see the home run, he's a big leaguer. They don't see the struggles and the going into the tunnel to stay loose and the prayer and hey, what happened to you the week before, however many days before.
A lot went on that week.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. And looking at that, and as we're fixing to start wrapping this up, just like how important has the mental game been just to your career?
Well, at first, especially younger in my career, and I'll give my wife Terry a lot of credit because I came in and I'm just like any other kid that played high school ball. I played all the time, didn't know how to sit on the bench. Mm-hmm. And my second year of being in pro ball, they shoved us all on a high A team. And so my bats were every other day. And that was tough. And, I can remember, like you said, you live for that one moment to keep you to the next moment, and I was really volatile. And I can remember one night having an 0 for 3 and a couple of errors or something like that year and just starting to pack my stuff up. And my mom and dad were in town in Lynchburg, Virginia, and they're like, no, just call Terry. Just call Terry. Please call Terry. And so I called her. She's like, you're not quitting. And she told me, she's like, I'm not going to let you quit because things are hard and look back in 10 years and go, I wish I'd have stuck it out. She said, I'm not going to let you do that because you're in the middle of living a dream. And so, and that's happened to me. I can remember it happened to me when I was in Cleveland, in Buffalo. I had a MVP year one year, my second year being in Buffalo back in 2001, I think. And somebody else getting a chance to go up in September, and I didn't. I just thought this isn't fair, and you're not going to quit on your dreams, and so a lot of what I went through, and what my son goes through mentally of being a small guy and some of the things he has to deal with your dad's name and you're not this, you're not the best player, blah, 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 blah. Those are things I went through. And so I'm like, Eli, I went through the same things. And I think of all the things, the way my career it's a lot easier to say, well, yeah, I was drafted by the Red Sox and I played 15 years in the big leagues with them. Well, what kind of story is that, and, all the things I got to experience, all the places I got to go, and all the times it's really, really difficult, and all the stories that you don't know behind the stories. People don't know that, as a bench player, I'm hitting extra BP every day, early BP for the extra guys every day, extra defensive work to live for one hit for the week, to live for one moment. There's so many things, and you ride a roller coaster going up and down. So there was such mental challenges that it questions whether this is still a dream, or are you still having fun playing this game, or is it overwhelming you? And I've been fortunate, as the more I coach, the more I see that the reason why God allowed me to go through these is so I can help others that are struggling with, whether they're struggling or they're not struggling with something, but they need to be humbled, or they need to understand that this one hit is just one hit. Your 4 for 4 is great and that's awesome. It means nothing now. You just have to keep living for the next hit, the next at bat, and the next opportunity to do something. So, absolutely, mental game played. And the more I've coached, the more I understand that. We've talked about it as coaches and as players. Oh, baseball's so mental. It's so mental. It really is. And it's something as little as I failed a test can affect your whole outlook of your day.
Hmm.
Something as arguing with your parents or something before you left for school that day, your mood will affect how the rest of your day goes. And so I think drawing on just the experiences I had of having to fight and wanting to quit and not my wife not letting me quit, and then seeing, there's value to the road I took as opposed to the one Derek Jeter took or Alex Rodriguez took, that has helped me help kids understand that, look, that baseball doesn't last forever, but what you learn out of these experiences will help you live the rest of your life. So I try to use them
Wow.
that way.
That's awesome right there. And as we start to wrap this up, Coach, if I run into you and let's just say it's kind of like I look in our convention last week or our clinic and you're in the hallway talking and doing those things and you had 2 to 3 minutes to give advice to that young coach that, is going to be like we were, or, like you said, when you were younger, heck, when I was younger, we're going to fix the world and be on top of everything. What's that
Right.
advice that you would give them? Just the first thing that comes to your mind of, hey, man, this is what you need to worry about instead of
The
those
first
wins and
thing I would
losses.
tell a young coach, because I didn't know, I didn't know. I was the first. I just went straight into coaching. I've had to learn this hands on, and I would say, look, practice plans are nice. Organization is critical. Communication is paramount. But before you do anything, you need to learn everybody that you're coaching, whether it's your eighth grader, that's up your Dawson Griffith in eighth grade, that's a base runner and all of a sudden he's your starter, to the senior who's not getting to play and he's still on the team. What's his motivation? I said, once you can figure out who you're working with and get to understand them as people and develop that kind of relationship, then you have a team that will play and do anything for you at that point. Then you get to utilize the philosophies you want to utilize and impress on them because they know you're genuine and getting to know who they are as people.
Awesome. That's a great answer. And coach, one last thing is if there's anybody that wants to reach out and talk with you, and guys, I promise you, this is a man that you want to get out and listen to, talk to, a lot of knowledge and would love to share it. Where can they find you or get a hold of you at?
My cell number is 901-334-6896. They can call me, text me first because I got a lot of people do it. Just text me. You won't bug me. I'm at Northwest. My stuff information's at Northwest. I'm always at Northwest in the indoor building. So, man, I'm available anytime anybody wants anything. On Twitter, I don't even know my Twitter handle. I just know I'm on it. So, absolutely, I like talking shop. I like talking about helping kids get better.
Absolutely. And I know if you got a player, you'd love to hear about that too.
Absolutely, always.
Well, coach, man, this has been awesome. I appreciate you taking your time out, especially with this weather. I didn't know if I would be able to sit down in February and talk with anybody, but this weather's allowed us to. And, as we get ready and hopefully get revved up again to get going, just hope you stay safe. And Coach Selby, I appreciate you taking off with us today.
Coach, it's been enjoyable, man. Anytime.
Thank you.